Hello. How is everyone? I hope you're having a great day. I've got a good show lined up for you today. I have a special guest star. Oh, how is everyone? There we go. Let me do one thing so that I can get the other group here with us, and we'll be rolling. David Winters is an award-winning author, and he's joined me today out of the goodness of his heart because he's a wonderful person. And he's an established author with several books already out and more on their way, and we're going to talk to him about that today. Give me 1 second to make this last connection, and we're rolling. All right. So, I'm Patricia Durgin, the Christian message coach from marketersonamission.com. This is a live show designed to help Christian communicators like you market their message. One of the ways that we do that is by interviewing established authors and speakers to hear their stories and to learn from their experiences. So let me introduce, drum roll, let me introduce David Winters. Hey, David, how are you?
Hi, Patricia. Great to be with you today.
Thanks so much for joining me. We're going to have a fun time. You're an award-winning author and a speaker and a humorist. I think that's cool because I don't think that the world has enough humorists, David. What do you think about that?
I think there's just the right amount now, but no one else should get into it.
And that leaves plenty of room for you, right?
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
That's your mindset. Yeah. Well, your first book was a nonfiction book, Sabbatical of the Mind, The Journey from Anxiety to Peace. Typically, our writing is drawn from our own experiences. So did you need Christ's help to find the journey from anxiety to peace?
That's very true. You and I met in Philadelphia for the first time back a couple years ago, and this book was just coming out. And Sabbatical of the Mind is really my story of going nuts in the Washington rat race, stopping to hear from the Lord and to read all kinds of books, find out everything I could from wise people that had been down the same path I had before, and then to go back at it with more love for my employees, more understanding of my mission in my job, and just, more understanding that God has taken away all of our need to fear. Sometimes we still fear, but God has really taken away every reason that we have to base those fears on. So when we turn our eyes to the Lord and to faith, we're able to achieve a new kind of peace that many of us have searched for all of our lives. And so my book is really not a how-to exactly. It's my story, but it has a lot of lessons learned that I hope will be helpful to others.
That can apply to almost anybody, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think my best moment as a writer so far was an email I got from a guy living in his car in Los Angeles, and told me that he was so crippled by anxiety that he hadn't been able to work. But after reading my book, he was able to go back to work, and he was earning money to actually get his own place again. And, that's when you feel like life is worth it, when you help one person really change. And that was exciting.
That's a magnificent story, isn't it?
Yep. It encouraged me a lot.
And we have to believe that there were other people that maybe not had that depth of dire circumstances, but had the depth of the need, and they needed exactly what you said. They just didn't email you or didn't respond in any way so that you could get that feedback, but they were there.
That's true. I know from talking to people that at least I've made a lot of people laugh at some of the things that happened to me as I was dealing with anxiety, and also some of the fun adventures I had, like being in a movie.
I hope we get to that. Tell me just now, what's going on with the movie? I saw a little snippet of it. Tell me about it.
The movie is For the Glory, and it is out. And actually, you can now get it on Amazon Prime and through Netflix and some of those outlets. So, if you get a chance, it's a great Christian movie, and it's got a wonderful message about finding your real purpose in life, not necessarily just keeping going down the path you've always gone on.
Mm. Now, were you one of the main characters?
No, I was not. I was a bit player, and I learned about acting and about movies in behind the scenes way that was very enjoyable.
One of the things that I like about you, particularly, David, is that your posts that you show on social media, particularly Facebook, that's the one I'm most on. Your posts, I mean, you are an active person. You've got lots of interest, and you explore them. You don't let them lie. You go out and find the adventure that's there, don't you?
I do. My goal, like Woody Allen, has always been to climb the low mountain. So if there's not a lot of physical exercise involved. Like I strolled through a local garden here the other day and saw the tulips, and they were absolutely magnificent. And I probably only got 4,000 steps in, so it was perfect.
That was enough. That was enough. So, excuse me. How did you go from being a government employee that dealt with contracts to the sabbatical of mine makes a little bit of sense. That segue makes a little bit of sense to us. It seems more natural now that we've heard what you've just said about that. But a fiction writer, a nonfiction writer, and then a compilation of 5 plays for Christmas. That's quite a broad stretch.
Yeah, I think like a lot of my author friends, I've always had a desire to write. And when I was manager at Department of Homeland Security, that was a busy life. It was very difficult to take time out to, you know, explore and bare my soul and learn a new craft and all that. So I took a lot of notes on my sabbatical. Then once I retired, 5 years after I went back to work that time, that was been about 2 or 3 years ago now. I decided that I was going to make, my dreams come true related to writing. So the first thing I did was go to a Christian Writers Conference in Hershey, Pennsylvania, met a lot of great people, found my editor there. Um, and I strongly recommend that if you do get to the point where you're ready for an editor for your book, that you not only pay for it, pay for somebody good, don't have it edited by your English teacher friend that teaches at the local community college.
Yes.
Get a real professional editor that's worked in the business a long time. And, I found that person there at a conference, and then I was on my way. So, the first thing you've got to do is write a good book. And, the longer I'm in this, the more I think that you probably do that about your 7th or 8th attempt. That you know we put things down, we get started, and they're to encourage us. And if you've got a lot of friends and family, and develop a few fans along the way, then you can get a lot better. You just have to keep going and keep learning.
We have to keep that momentum going, don't we? Keep that muscle working. It becomes more and more refined.
Yep. And it's a big business. It's not just about writing down a few thoughts. There's covers and back cover copy, and there's copy edits, and there's just all kinds of marketing, which is your specialty, and something that I enjoy doing. I don't not like the marketing part of it. It's just as a self-published author, you can feel overwhelmed because there's literally hundreds of aspects of doing a good job at every point in the process.
Absolutely. And that's whether you're a Christian writer, a Christian speaker, a Christian entrepreneur, whatever it is that you're trying to do, particularly when we take it online and we're trying to build a following, a platform online. That's just a totally different world than we've ever experienced before, isn't it?
That's right. And, it's changing every minute. Like, there's a lot of people online that are willing to help you market your book. There are a lot of people that'll take your money for helping you market your
Yes.
book. But there's an awful lot of people chasing the same methods, such as, building your email list and ads on this platform or that platform. But to really find success in those, you have to find the people that you relate to you, and want to read the type of book that you're selling. And, while I'm exploring, I've explored the fiction side and explored the nonfiction side of my interests. I realize that that's really two different audiences for the most part. And
Yes.
some people close to you might read both types of your books, but the vast majority of people aren't out there thinking, oh, I'll read a nonfiction book today, and now let me get a nice romance the next day.
Hmm.
There are people like that, but most of the people that are going to buy your book are going to be fans of the genre that you picked.
I agree. I agree. And now you've got another nonfiction in the works that you're going to co-author with your pastor, and you also have two more of your fiction trilogy to finish and market. So you're still going to be straddling that line for a couple 3 years to come, aren't you?
Yeah, that's my plan. I haven't settled, into one or the other, and I might actually change my fiction to write under a pseudonym, just make sure that the two audiences don't accidentally buy the book and the other,
Hmm.
uh, you know, type of book and then not be happy because they're expecting a fiction book and here it's, a nonfiction. But the book I have coming out with my pastor is called Taking God to Work, and we are very excited about this book. It's 13 chapters. It can be run as just a book to read. A lot of tips, ideas. We examine the laws related to what you can and can't say at work based on current case law. Um, we look at resources like the American Center for Law and Justice, where you can look up more information if you have a specific issue or problem creeping up. But we also just give a lot of scripture and a lot of practical advice about using biblical wisdom in your workplace to love people, to care about them, but also to shine as a Christian light in a world that some would say is growing darker and darker.
I think that every generation that's ever lived says that, but it's also true, don't you think?
I think so, yeah. I mean, when my parents saw the Beatles for the first time on TV, I think they about had a heart attack. So, we're still seeing stuff that is scary in a lot of ways. But on the other hand, where sin abounds, grace much more abounds, and we have a Savior that's going to help us make it all the way to the end. We don't have to worry.
Yes. And the same tools that the enemy uses and the internet and all the different kind of technology that you can reach across the world in a millisecond and remain anonymous and do great danger. At the same time, if we twist that or turn that on the other side of the coin and we look at that, we can do the same thing with the message of Christ, can't we? We can reach people in another country, in another continent, and whether we're anonymous or we're not, we're using the same tools, one for good and one for evil.
Right. And, that is the cool thing about these platforms like Amazon, like Kobo, like Barnes and Noble. I get a little report, and, when I see somebody in Japan or India or Australia bought one of my books, it's like, wow, that's amazing that somebody over there is hearing about my rear end problem in Sabbatical to Mine, for example.
You mean your car's rear end problem?
No, I'm talking about my rear end problem. An incident that most people, when they read the book and see me, the next time they see me, they're kind of embarrassed and sort of, hi, we read your book, And so.
Okay. So now you make me want to go, excuse me, you make me want to go buy the book so that my curious mind can be satiated. Now, you're scheduled to attend the Blue Ridge Christian Writers Conference that's coming up in May in Asheville. That's my neck of the woods, almost. Asheville and Atlanta are just a couple of hours apart from each other. What is it that you hope to, not only at Blue Ridge, you're also going to be speaking at the ICRS, International Christian Retail Show. You're going to be attending there. When you're contemplating, thinking, praying, considering going to a conference, there's many, and you're a speaker and a writer and a humorist. So imagine with those three categories over your name that you could go to a lot more conferences. How do you decide? What kind of a agenda do you have? Give us the process of making a decision on choosing one this year and another one next year and so forth. How do you make that decision?
Yeah, well, it's tempting to give you a lot of false, funny answers. I will try not to do that, even though I am wearing my camouflage hat. I have to wear the hat because my ears are so large that I literally can start flying if I don't sort of keep them pinned back. If there's a little bit of wind at all, I'm off. My brother first noticed this when I was young, and he used to send me up like a kite and then pull me back down with the spring. But that aside, and back to your question, when I went to my first conference, I was amazed at kind of the depth of information, the helpfulness and willingness of people to share, and also the overwhelming scope of everything you really need to learn. So I found out that all conferences are not created equal, but they all offer some great stuff. And so far, I've been to 5. Uh, 2 of them were kind of small, local, one-day things. One was a secular event, which was basically just like the others, only with cussing. And So that it was good, but I got to meet some very wealthy authors that I've never met at a Christian conference because
Yes,
they were
yes.
paid so much for their books. But really, I look at it first, and I do pray. I do see what my budget might be. Like some of the conferences, all in, you could be spending between $600 and $1,000, including travel to get there even if you drive. So you have to kind of look at what you can afford to do. Local conferences like the Virginia Association of Christian Fiction Writers was just a treasure trove of information for under $100, including travel and everything. So that was just fantastic, and it was just one day. Now I've decided that I want to meet all kinds of different people because there's all kinds of agents that go to them,
Yes.
all kinds of instructors, just great information all over the place. So I decided to pick ones that are geographically diverse, with different people there, different instructors and different agents and publishers. So last year I went to the one in Chicago up by Wheaton College. That was absolutely fantastic. And the Blue Ridge one is one of the best ones in the country. Some would say it's the biggest and the best, but they definitely have uh, outstanding faculty every year. And this will be, of course, my first time to go, but I've looked at their stuff online. I've talked to the people who've been before, and so I'm going there this year. And next year I'm going to go to the one in Florida. Florida is a pretty big one too.
Yes, yes.
And if you are like me, I'm retired from my first job, so I can travel around. I have the time to do it, and that way get the benefit of all these people. Now, if you're really lucky and you hit it out of the park, you can also get a book signing somewhere in that area and try to get a little publicity while you're in the area as
Yes.
well.
I know a lot of authors who do that, particularly Cease Murphy, who has retired now, but he's still got his finger in lots and lots and lots of pots because that's who he is. But he will often, and I'm not speaking for him, I just know that he will often let people know that I'm going to XYZ location and I'm going to be speaking on this topic on these dates. Who do you know in that area that might want me to speak, because he's a pastor as well, speak on their Sunday service or go to a book signing or attend a training or fill in the blank, as creative as he can be. And he sets his own parameters, and he's not doing near what he used to do because he is retired and his energy level, he's got to watch his energy level and so forth. But it's such, that single idea is such a no-brainer. When somebody says it, then the light bulb goes on and we think, of course. And yet, before somebody mentioned it, if we've never heard of it before, that is not the natural way we think, is it?
That's right. And, I'm keeping an eye on Cease's energy level too, because I really don't want him putting out too many books that compete with mine. Quite a big problem.
Before we go on together, let me check and see if there are any questions or comments, David. Give me just a second. Sometimes my cursor, I might have to postpone that. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Let's see if anybody's got any questions. No. See if anybody's got any questions.
Well, I have a question, Patricia.
Yes.
From the backdrop behind you, you look like you must be in a secret hideaway. Do you ever torture writers there to try to get the best out of them?
No, but that is a great idea, Dave. I have not considered that, and I love it.
Okay. I might sign up for that just for I really do need to improve my marketing. So.
Okay. So there are some questions here. I spoke out of turn. Kathy wants to know, do you sell on Amazon, David?
I do, I have all 3 books up on Amazon. David L. Winters is my name, and you can find him there. I also have a website. My books are usually on Barnes & Noble, christianbook.com, a bunch of other places too, but usually you can find them if you look around.
And before we get off today, I'm going to show I'm going to add links afterwards to your Amazon page and your website, but I want to actually show people your home page on your website, just as ingrained in their mind what it is they're looking for. Sean Kuhn, whom we both know and respect very much, says you are the best, and he loved your book. What do you have to respond to Sean?
Well, Sean is actually one of the first big personalities I met in Christian publishing at that conference in Hershey. He and his lovely wife, Suzanne, planned that conference. And Sean is a hoot and a holler. I mean, if you get a chance to meet him or work with him, I'm sure you will be thoroughly entertained and enjoy the process.
I agree with all of that. They're both, Suzanne and Sean are so knowledgeable, and they are both a hoot and a holler. Sean's more of a hoot, and she's more of a holler.
Exactly.
Gail Johnson says, hello. Hi, Gail. Thanks for joining us today. And let's see. That's what we have right now. So let me go back to us, just us. But we have company. We just can't see them. Let's see. And then now when you go to the ICRS, the International Christian Retailers Association, in July in Nashville, have you been before? And if so, how did it benefit you? And if you have not, what do you hope to learn from it this year, David?
Okay. I went last year. It was a fantastic experience. There's a whole different group of people that go there than you'll meet anywhere else. These are the folks mainly that have bookstores, Christian shops here and there sprinkled around the country. There are also tons of industry people. There's media there that cover Christian books and Christian films. There's all kinds of talk shows that go there. I got several talk show gigs out of going there. Also, you can meet other like-minded authors. John Morgan is one I met. He's a hilarious impersonator of George Bush and now Trump, and just really, really funny guy. Very, very servant leader kind of guy. He stopped and prayed for me after he signed my book, or his book for me, and he just very interested in me. Came by and got my book, and he also is a good musician. He was leading worship during his book signing. They also, if you go, depending on what group you go with, but I think just about anybody who has a booth there, you can get up on the main stage during lunch and just start talking about your book, tell people about yourself, about your what you're passionate about, what you care about, and just an amazing time. And I was able to put my books in the hands of a lot of booksellers in one place. They could read it. And I remember one very fierce looking Christian woman that's probably been around for ages, and she said, I'm really going to read this, and if it measures up, I'll have it in my store. Oh. And I was intimidated, but also encouraged.
And did she order?
I don't know. That's a question for the Ingram warehouse and and for God, I guess. But yeah, and there's a lot of good to be had from that. I also went to the National Religious Broadcasters last year,
Oh, did you?
and that was the same thing. There's a lot of industry people, a lot of chance to, and you're giving an impression to publishers, to agents, to other people that you might want to form a relationship with, that you're out there doing your best to promote your books and to, spread the word about what you're doing.
Absolutely. And you can form a relationship in a small period of time in person that it might take months or years. One email back and forth from stranger to stranger, if that can even be maintained. You can really cut to the chase if the Holy Spirit allows you to, and really develop a close relationship fairly quickly, can't you?
Right. One relationship I developed was with a Pastor Joe Ramsey in Virginia Beach, and she actually invited me down to be on her radio show. They put me up overnight. They have a lovely place on the water with a guest house, and her and her husband are strong Christians, very good fellowship, and I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't gone to the NRB meeting.
Yes. I get so energized at those places. I'm totally spent when I'm finished, but I like to talk to everybody that I can, listen to their stories. And of course, I like to interview people while I'm there if the Lord gives me that opportunity, and that works for the powers that be that are in charge of that conference. The ICRS, as you said, and is more industry related, and the typical Christian writers or Christian speakers conferences are driven by training, aren't they?
That's right. And, there's a lot of classes offered. And last year I was, trying to form the relationships for agents and publishers. This year I'm looking at it more as building my skills in the craft itself. And so, like going to a session and hearing someone talk in depth about point of view for 90 minutes is can be hard to find out there in the world. And you can ask questions about your characters, about transitions you're trying to make, and get helpful advice right on the spot.
I love going. I love hearing about people when they go. I like finding out more about it. They just energize me because they are, in addition to the value that we get that you can measure. You got to go to 3 sessions and 2 workshops and 3 keynotes. Then there's that camaraderie that's only available in that kind of space, isn't it? Nobody else is as interested in what you're doing as everybody that's at a Christian writers or a Christian speakers conference. They have those same goals.
Yeah, there's a moderate amount of camaraderie. I have a T-shirt that says, we're introverts, we're here, we're uncomfortable, and we want to go home. So I prefer not to have camaraderie. I try to, be off-putting and move people away. But but there is a lot, especially for women. Men don't like to talk, so we pretty much just try to find a Risk tournament or some board game.
I've met you in person, David and I. My husband David and I have met you, and you were so gracious and kind and pleasant and knowledgeable, and you present yourself very well in every way in a short period of time that we got to know you, and we consider you a friend, and we're glad that we got a chance to meet you.
Yeah, and I think I had just eaten then.
So you were happy.
Yeah. Yeah, that conference had a lot of food. That was a good conference.
So earlier, if we get a chance, I mentioned I was going to ask you about this. Earlier, you were telling me a story. Oh, let me check and see if anyone has any other questions or comments. Not so far. Okay. You were telling me about a story that that it really illustrates the glamour of being an author who takes their books to a book fair. Would you care to share that with me now again, David?
No, I really don't ever repeat anything. So I can't really tell that. But I can tell a more boring story. So
okay.
No, I decided in my whirlwind tour of any book fest that would have me that I would go to the Baltimore Book Festival. And it's a big one. It's right along the waterfront. It's beautiful up there in the harbor, Inner Harbor, and just a wonderful place to be. But they have like authors who are very established, and publishing companies have these nice outdoor booths. All the rest of us are called tablers. And so they put us in this giant tent, similar to something that perhaps the Ringling Brothers Circus used to be in. And then, this particular day, it was unusually warm for the time of year. And in the tent, it was like at least 100 degrees. I mean, literally, people were leaving, passing out. Authors were falling on one side of me and on the other, one after the other. But the thing about those conferences is you're a light in sometimes a really dark place. Like I've had instances where I'm across from a poetry reading tent, and every other person who's reading poetry, it's something about how they're mad at God, And so here you are trying to not only sell Christian books, and the one at Baltimore, I had the sleazy romance authors on one side with like almost half naked people on their covers, and and they're talking kind of risque to everybody that comes by. On the other side, I had a cute young 20-year-old woman who had written the best children's book I've ever seen. It was A Woman Can, a Girl Can Be Anything from A to Z, I think. And so all the pictures were her being cartooned by her illustrator, and it showed her, like being an astronaut for A, and beekeeper, et cetera, et cetera. That it was a wonderful idea, and it was a wonderful book. Well, she probably sold 150 books at like $20-some a piece, and I think I sold like 3 or 4 books all day. It was my worst ever. And most of the people that came through the tent were zombies. They were so stressed from the heat, and they really didn't even want to stop. They wanted to like seek shelter as quick as they could in their car. And but the funny thing is, they would stop this girl next to me, and because it was for their kids, and for kids, people do a lot of things. But talking to me, I mean, literally, I had candy to give away. It was hard candy, so it wasn't even melting or anything. Just no one was interested, and it was really, really rough. But there are those connections you meet, and normally, I think it pays because. Like I'm in my hometown one this weekend, Sunday from 11 to 4, if you're in this Washington area, Kensington Day of the Book. And, you not only meet the people from that area, but you meet people who've driven in from miles and miles away. They have several thousand people that come. And you give away a lot of swag. I have little keychains for my Driver Confessional novel. People have bookmarks, different kinds of things. And that marketing creates a connection. They've met you at one time. And usually I sell at least as many, if not twice as many books online the next day. There's a lot of people who only read electronically, just want to go on Amazon. And even if you offer them a special price, they're going to wait and go back the next day and get the ebook instead of the hard copy. So I highly recommend those kind of activities. I've done some author talks at libraries. Those are really a dog thing. No one comes. The library barely publicizes it, at least around me. And but every little step is another way of trying to build those connections and to get readers.
Because you never know what God has around the next corner, do you?
Well, and there's the rub, really. When you go out there, if you pray ahead of time, every time there's somebody who's had an issue that needs prayer, that needs talking to. With me and the book on anxiety, there's so many people that deal with this, and a chance to talk to them, maybe even pray with them, is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
And that's how you got started, isn't it? You had a story that you wanted to share, that you knew God was in, and you knew that He wanted you to share it, that it would help people. It's the thread that keeps consistently coming up, doesn't it?
That's right.
Hmm. Hmm. Let me see if I have any other questions in my handy notes. Okay, I do. I don't have a question. I want to share the screen and let the viewers see your website. So, and of course, again, I'm going to put the links to this, and the Amazon link to David's page, and the sabbaticalofthemind.net is his website home. I'm going to put those in the show notes, but I wanted to let you see it even while we were talking, so that when you'll be able to know. I like being able to know that I've hit the right place. I'm in exactly where I thought I was going to be. So, what are the chances that you may come back again and visit us, David, sometime in the future?
Well, right at this point in my writing career, I find that it's good only to talk to each person once. So I haven't been able to talk to my relatives again since I started this 3 years ago.
This new policy?
Yeah, just one time each person. But I think in your case, I would have to make an exception because I always have so much fun, and it's been great meeting you. You're one of the many jewels that I've come across in the Christian publishing and writing game. So thanks so much for having me, Patricia. It's great to be here.
You're very welcome. Every time we get together, it's only been a small number of times, but it's just rich, a rich exchange, and that's due to the Holy Spirit. So I thank you for your time. I'm going to send people to you, and I thank you for your wisdom and the insights that you've given us, how you strategize, what you want to refine further in your marketing or your messaging or your writing techniques. And then you go about it very logically, so that this year you're going to go to these conferences and hopefully learn these items, and then meet people that will shore that up and encourage you to the next steps. And the professional people that we see, and it's just a wonderful world to be in. The Christian writing world and the Christian speaking world, they're both just wonderful worlds to be in, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, David, for being with us today. And then tomorrow, viewers, is Q&A Friday, baby. So make sure you're back here with us every day. We're here every day at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for joining us today.